Hey y'all, I hope your day is going well. In this video, I'm going to be finishing up the last few spreads of my sketchbook, but I'm also going to shake things up a little bit. Today I'm going to talk about a magnet high school for art that I attended and my experiences at said school. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Some students have had different experiences than I have, so I definitely understand if you went to this school and completely disagree with me on things. After all, this is my personal experience. That being said, I'll be talking about some of the reasons I took into consideration before I ultimately made the decision to get the heck out of there. And just a heads up, I won't be naming this school for pretty self-explanatory reasons, but anyway, this school is compatible for some people and it simply isn't for others. I am others. This school was 8 through 12 and I attended from the 8th grade to February of my freshman year. After transferring to a normal public school, I realized that it was an infinitely better fit for someone like myself. I found that once I transferred, ironically, I had more time for art, and I'm not alone in this. Other people who transferred out have found that as well. For this video, I'll be talking about the building, the staff, the tea, and I'll end it off by including some thoughts from other students who attended the school along with myself. To provide some imagery for you, the building was severely underfunded, to say the least. As per usual for most schools in the district, we never had hot or even warm water in the bathrooms. The only sink in the entire school with warm water was the art room for some reason, and we constantly had ant infestations, which was kind of ironic given the fact that our mascot was the ants. We didn't have any sports teams because, well, it was an art school, but nevertheless, it was our mascot. And the logo on the building was not for our school, but the school that used to occupy the building years ago. And of course, like every school in our district, the heating and AC were always whack.
The way that he talks, whack. The way that he doesn't even like to smile, whack. Me, I'm tight as f.
We had constant leaks and many other little problems that probably could have been fixed with just more funding, honestly. Gotta love that defunded education system. Next, I'm gonna talk about the staff. Let me start out by saying that the principal who was there when I attended the school is now gone, and we'll delve more into that later. But the story I'm about to tell you is all you need to know to get a good feel for her character. So one day my friend and I were getting ready to walk home from school, and over on the sidewalk in front of the school, we see a group of adults with posters who are yelling, "Fire the rat!" over and over. The rat. Grown adults, probably parents, calling our principal a rat. The fact that they're one, protesting the principal, and two, calling her a rat, I mean, it was kind of justified though. This had been early 8th grade, I believe, so I hadn't really had the experience trademark of that school for long enough to understand the parents' frustration. But as the year went by, I noticed that her priorities were just not straight. I remember she would spend a lot of time going from room to room and making sure all the girls were dressed according to the county's dress code, but just the girls. And during lunch, she would go around the cafeteria and tell students to put away their phones or else she would take them. And just a reminder, this is a high school. I remember during my 8th grade year, there were a handful of seniors at the time who wanted to start a Black student union, and she declined their request because it was supposedly a racist concept. There were other very specific incidents that she was involved in, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to talk about the general stuff, and I'll revisit the reason she left later when we have a bit more context. This one teacher that I will refer to as Miss B was simply a pain in my ass. She would fail us if we accidentally forgot to include our name or date on the papers, and a lot of times she would explain instructions in an extremely vague manner. I would misunderstand the instructions and consequently do the assignment wrong. And most times she would fail me without giving me a second chance at it. I did have a lot of absences, so sometimes I would be missing some info, but they were very much justified absences because of a literally debilitating medical condition that I have, but at the end of the day, I guess that didn't make me a favorite of hers. Anyway, moving on. This next teacher, Miss P, taught a class that every 8th grader has to take, so this experience with her was pretty universal for almost every student who went there. I've heard stories about how she made students rub her feet and massage her back during class. She had us take typing tests on goddamn typing.com, and so many students were just not good at it, causing them to fail this portion of the class. Typing is a good skill to have, but it's not worth a test grade in the gradebook, you know? Also, fun added bonus to her class, since we had to stare at a screen in the dark for an hour and a half, this would trigger my previously mentioned medical condition, which she did not seem to like either. We also would have to wear business casual every other week, which was a waste of money for a lot of people, myself included, because as an 8th grader, you're still growing. You got a few years left to unlock your maximum potential, you know? So a lot of us had to go to the store and buy these clothes, only to grow out of them like a year or two later. It was also annoying that we had to dress out for PE too, because then we'd have to bring 2 separate outfits to change out for. Another teacher that I'll call Miss A taught me in freshman year and had told us that everyone is bisexual, even if we think we're straight, or gay, or asexual even. It was so weird because she's a health teacher and a lesbian, so you'd think she'd have more understanding, but apparently not. Also, this teacher in particular would call me out routinely to tell me how many absences I was at for the year, which was kinda humiliating, not gonna lie. But overall, some of the teachers were great, mostly the arts teachers from my experience, but a handful of the academic teachers were questionable. Like, not to be dramatic or anything, but I really do question how some of them still have their jobs. So now let's get into the scandalous stuff. The tea. There were a handful of situations, whatever you want to call them. So the first one I want to talk about involved a French teacher, who I didn't personally have, but I did hear about what went down. So one day he showed an old French cartoon film in their class that a student suggested. Now this is from the Jim Crow era, and it happened to include a scene with an exaggerated anti-black stereotype. You guys probably know the thing I'm referring to, as it was sadly commonplace from that time period. Anyway, this girl told her mom about it, who then got involved with the school, and the teacher ended up losing his job, and in my opinion, he shouldn't have, because there was no malicious intent, and the students knew that this film was made in an era where those things were unfortunately socially acceptable. What really puts the nail in the coffin is that after this teacher was fired, he was replaced by a substitute who was banned from teaching in the county because of an actual racist incident she was involved in. Just a heads up, very, very small trigger warning for this next one. So, the second one I want to mention was actually pretty recent, and it was after I left the school. Starting my freshman year, there was a new teacher. He seemed pretty young and pretty hip, but after I left the school, I started hearing about something that happened. There were talks that he had sexually manipulated a student to some degree. One of my friends who graduated last year texted me saying, and I quote, "He was only there for 2 years, and the people who know what he did just victim blamed." So yeah, this ended up with him getting fired and the principal resigning as well. I don't know all the details as I didn't go there anymore, but that's what I heard went down. They do have a new principal now though, who seems to be a bit better. So yeah, that was your context for the principal leaving. Also, after I left the school, one of my former teachers was fired as well for sexual harassment, I believe. But I'm honestly not entirely sure, but I do remember him being very touchy. I remember one time I was crying in his class because it'd be like that sometimes, and he took me out into the hallway and put his hands on my face. And I just remember thinking, I really just didn't ask for that. As a teacher, you really should be asking for consent if you're gonna touch a student's face like that, because some people are not chill with it. As for the general, student environment and student body, from what I remember, it was pretty calm. People were straight up with each other and respectful to one another. There were, believe it or not, no fights at all. Period. 0. So, funny story. One time, some drama kids had to stage a fight to give us a feel of what it would be like if one were to actually take place. Lo and behold, everyone just kind of stood around to see what was going on, but nobody encouraged it really, and nobody took out their phones to record either, because a lot of people were kind of genuinely scared of their phones getting confiscated by the principal. So now I'm going to talk about some other students' input. So I asked a few students about their input on the school. Some have graduated already, some are currently in their senior year at the school, and some had transferred out like me. One former student who transferred out said, "I started falling behind in academics because of mental health and home issues, and the school was aware of this and did nothing to help. One teacher tormented me all year. I was in his class, and one time he actually got in my dad's car unannounced. The principal was always super antagonizing to me and had a weird stigma around mental health too. One time a friend was on the floor having a panic attack and she told her to suck it up and get to class. Once I left, I ended up doing more in the arts, which is actually really funny. That's hashtag relatable for me too, oh my goodness. Another student said, good concepts but bad execution. It had a lot of good moments though. Only a handful of teachers and faculty actually gave a fuck about their students, and then there were the creepy ones. The entire environment was bad overall. A girl in my grade said, one math teacher in 8th grade would give these 2 kids in particular a hard time and bad grades even when they did the problems correctly. We were all super scared of her, but the administration wouldn't believe us. And one time someone got a concussion while playing softball during PE and the coach told them to get over it. I would say the main issue at the school was favoritism, which, low-key, I agree with her. I do. I really do. Alright, so that's it for the student input. So yeah, those were mainly the reasons why I left. I do also want to point out that a lot of the teachers actively push the students to go the extra mile. It's a school that likes to treat their curriculum with rigor to prepare students for a rigorous future. Some people are a match, but others just aren't built for it. Like, personally, I didn't really feel like I was gaining anything from it, even though a lot of my peers who still go there have gotten countless opportunities in the arts and academically even. And I guess that's just how the cookie crumbles. It definitely wasn't like High School Musical, but there were some good parts of the school that I actually really enjoyed. Like the concert choir that I was in was amazing, the productions that the drama department put on were incredible, and the orchestra and band were just so incredibly talented. I made a handful of friends at the school who I still keep in touch with every once in a while. So at the end of the day, I was able to choose what felt right for me, and I'm so comfortable where I am now and with what I'm doing. I'd like to think of it this way. If I still went to that school, I probably would not have had the experiences and opportunities that the past few years have brought me. And I probably wouldn't have had the time to make this channel or make any art for myself, as a matter of fact. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of ranty video. I know it's not the usual topic of discussion on here, and I hope you enjoyed the visuals. And guess what, guys? I finished my first ever sketchbook after 17 years. I finally did it. And as we're wrapping this video up, as always, I just want to thank you guys for sticking around. You're all so sweet and amazing, and it's because of y'all that I can actually consider pursuing art in the future. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Oh yeah, like and subscribe if you're feeling the vibes. And remember, I love you guys so much. Alright, bye-bye.